The Supreme Court has issued a temporary hold on ending Title 42. It's our other big story today. That's the Trump-era policy that's barring asylum seekers from entering the U.S. to prevent the spread of COVID. This comes as Texas braces for a massive surge of migrants, triggering the deployment of hundreds of National Guard members to El Paso. ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer joining me now for more on this. He's been following it. You know, you cover the Supreme Court for us. Kind of walk us through this ruling, and we'll talk about, what happens next.
Well, Kira, since the Trump administration put this policy in place, allowing the government to expel asylum seekers before they even enter the United States, it's been challenged in court. And lower courts have said that the policy was not properly set up. They struck it down. A district court judge gave the government until tomorrow to phase it out, to allow those asylum seekers into the United States to make their claims. That's been our practice for many decades. But a group of states, including Texas, many of the border states, intervened. They asked the Supreme Court earlier this week to do two things: put the end of Title 42 on hold, and also take up this case on the merits to actually look at the legal arguments involved. The Supreme Court has not yet decided either of those questions, Kira, but the Chief Justice, as you said at the top, did yesterday put what's called an administrative stay on ending Title 42. It simply buys them some time, sort of a timeout, so that they can take a closer look at this before they actually come to a decision which way they're going to go here.
Well, when can we expect a permanent decision then?
As with many things with the Supreme Court, really difficult to tell. They're not on a fixed timeline, Kira. The holidays are here. This deadline that had been in place for tomorrow at midnight was court-ordered. So simply by putting pause on the deadline, they're preserving the status quo. Obviously, as we see in these pictures, there's a dramatic crisis situation at the border now. Changing the policy, allowing it to end, that could sort of obviously create a new dynamic. So the Supreme Court is going to take its time. They're going to look at the arguments from both sides. Then they're going to make a decision. I expect in this case, Kira, it's probably going to be a matter of days, maybe a week. They're not going to sit on this for a long time, but they did just hit the pause button. Everybody, freeze in place here. We got the holidays this weekend, and they'll make a decision on whether they're going to stay this more permanently into next year or whether they're going to let it end as that lower court said it should.
Well, as you mentioned, this Trump-era policy was put in place at the height of COVID, right? So does it still make sense at this point, Devin, to have it in place, or is it just a way to keep migrants out of the U.S., as, critics argue?
Yeah, I mean, the migrant families, Kira, and immigration advocates that brought the challenge to Title 42 say it's no longer necessary. The pandemic emergency is over. For generations, asylum seekers who face the threat of persecution and violence at home have been able to come into the United States, make their claim, have it adjudicated. Some are sent back, some allowed to stay. But this policy, because of the emergency, these groups argue, is dated. It's done. We're past it now. On the other hand, you have states like Texas and other border states saying it is still an emergency. COVID maybe isn't as urgent as it once was, but certainly the flows of migrants are an emergency, and that by ending it now without an adequate plan in place would create some devastation. So the Supreme Court's going to have to see how those things shake out. Traditionally, Kira, immigration policy is the prerogative of the presidency and the executive branch. A lot of leeway to set those policies. So we'll have to see if the Supreme Court overrides the Biden administration here.
What's the White House think about all this and the reaction to this ruling?
Well, the White House is in a total pickle on this one. Officially, Kira, yesterday they told us that they support the lower court's order to end Title 42, meaning to let more of these asylum seekers come into the United States. On the other hand, they've previously argued in this very case to keep the policy in effect, at least for a little while longer. They're not, these images you're seeing are not lost on them. These thousands and thousands of migrants approaching the border. It is a crisis situation down there. Make no mistake about that. The White House knows it. So they're sort of treading carefully here. They're looking to the courts to do the dirty work and say which way things should go. And so far, the line from the White House is they'll respond to whatever the court says, Kira.
We'll follow it. Devin Dwyer. Thanks, Devin.
You bet.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.